The following programming is sponsored by Mark J. Bernstein. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect the views of this station, its management, or Beasley Media Group. Entrepreneur, founder, author, and financial advisor Mark Bernstein helps high-performing business owners turn their visions into reality. Through his innovative work and the Forward Focus forums, Mark connects entrepreneurs to resources that fuel their success. Founders Forum is a radio show and podcast where entrepreneurs share their journeys, revealing the lessons they've learned and the stories behind their success. Join Mark and his guests for a mix of inspiration, valuable insights, and a little fun. Now, let's dive in.
Good morning, America. How are you? I'm laughing because we're doing video today, and I'm getting used to technology here. I was running around the studio trying to get everything done at the last second. So, but with no further ado, I'm going to do what I don't usually do and introduce our guest first today, because it will also introduce the topic of the day. So, Michael Eckstein is founder and CEO of Vector Sports Science and the Topaz Group. And for over 40 plus years, he's had leadership roles in IT, strategic planning and technology, business. That's a big theme on our show, especially IT and technology has been big on this show. Business development for businesses from startups to Fortune 500 companies. He's had past positions that included CEO of the technology subsidiary of PA Blue Shield, it's a big job, the senior U.S. software executive for the State of Israel, and many more. In 2013, he founded Kinatrax. Did I say that right? Kinatrax, yep. A markerless motion capture technology platform to capture and analyze Major League Baseball pitchers during in-game performance, and it's now in use in 33 Major League Baseball stadiums. So we're going to get to talk about that a little bit. Yep. So good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Mark. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And the reason that I wanted to introduce Michael first is that the topic of the day is going to be sports and how it can impact people in their careers and leadership, which seemed kind of self-evident, but we happen to be having this conversation in my office over the last day or two, and it was perfect timing that Michael's here today. So, Michael, your thoughts on that? How did it influence you, and how can it influence young people, sports, in terms of being a leader in business down the road?
Well, Mark, clearly sports has the ability to basically focus your mind, focus your energy to, in fact, a goal. There are different types of sports, of course. There are team sports, basketball, baseball, football, hockey, rugby, whatever. And there are also individual sports. There are tennis, golf. And clearly when you are involved in sports, when you are training in sports, when you are looking to improve your skills in sports, it takes focus. And every athlete will tell you that focus and understanding what the objective is to get better is key. That can be translated then into business, understanding how to succeed through goals and objectives in the business world.
That's wonderful. I want to bring another dimension into this. Tell me specifically first, how did that impact you? How did you see that affecting your future business career?
Well, I have my degrees. I have my undergraduate degree from Drexel as well as my MBA. And I first started in the corporate world and understood very quickly that there are chains of command, there are rules, there are guidelines, there are different types of expectations when you are on the job. The question is, how did I break away? Well, there was a time in my career where I understood and I looked at different opportunities. And again, going back to the healthcare, insurance, drug discovery area when I was at Pennsylvania Blue Shield, I saw that there were different opportunities. I thought there were areas that were not being addressed. And at that point in time, I broke away and I started my own consulting company. So to your point, sports enabled me to have the discipline, to have the focus, to understand what was needed as I started up my own efforts.
Excellent. So another thing that I happen to know before we really dig into your story that influenced you also was the fact that you went to military school and then served in the military.
That's correct. Because of a family situation, my mom passed away at a very early age, and I was enrolled in Bordentown Military Institute, no longer in existence, but I was there for grades 8 through 12, a very impactful time in everybody's life. And after those 5 years, spent 4 years in the Air Force. So for 4 years, you understand the responsibilities, the goals, objectives, the chains of command, what needs to happen, plan your work your plan. Being in the Air Force, you understand that not always things go well, so you actually have to be adaptive. There are weather issues, there are equipment issues. So looking at the Air Force military school, my military experiences, together with sports, I am incredibly fortunate enough to look at things in a very, very analytical way, in a very organized way, put together logic as to how things need to proceed. And of course, in business, how do you get product to the marketplace? What is your pricing model? How you take market share? And those are the things in my background that helped me in my entrepreneurial life.
So planning an organization, but I detect something else as well. You mentioned chain of command. So out of the military, I believe you went to big corporation jobs for a long time before you became an entrepreneur.
That's correct. My first job was with a company called Oxirain, which was a joint venture between Atlantic Richfield and Halcon International. It was up in Princeton, New Jersey, and commuted from Philadelphia daily, from Princeton to Philly to Princeton and back. And from there all the way through and including 1996, 1998. So for a period of 4 years, I actually had this large corporation environment that I was working in, that I was progressing in, that I was being a part of, and learning how the decision-making process takes place, depending upon the corporation, sometimes good, sometimes not so good. But yes, had the experience in the large corporate world that gave me a lot of insight when I started my own companies.
So it looks like a very logical progression here. Sports to military. Military helped prepare you for the corporate world, and the corporate world helped prepare you for entrepreneurialism.
Mark, I never thought of it that way. Well, but wow, very insightful.
That's one of the cool things of doing the show and and telling your story to somebody else. I know I learn things when I have to tell my own story. So let's talk about that a little bit, about your career path. Anything you want to say up until when you got into vector sports science, and then we'll talk a little bit about Topaz Group.
Sure,
as well.
Absolutely. So. It was interesting because when I left Blue Cross Blue Shield and started my own company, I knew and understood different types of requirements and needs that life science and pharmaceutical companies had, specifically in the area of clinical trials, and went into the area of very specific identifying clinical trials at our recruitment sites and working with those clinical trials sites and the pharmaceutical companies having to do with the legal documents when you recruited different types of subjects for clinical trials. My client base included Merck, Pfizer, Lilly, Bristol Myers Squibb, and I was incredibly fortunate to have a very good portfolio of clients. Something that has stuck with me, Mark, for a long, long time is that in the 1980s, 1970s, there was a coach for the Dallas Cowboys, Tom Landry.
Sure.
And not a lot of people knew this, but Tom was in fact a ordained preacher. He was a minister.
I didn't know that.
And I was listening to him give a presentation during a pharmaceutical or some kind of a life science convention. And he has said something that has stuck with me for almost 40 years. And what he said was, life is not an undefeated season. And that is very insightful because all of us, everybody listening to this program, knows that there are ups and downs in life. So here I was into the early 2000s. I had a wonderful and very productive and very profitable consulting practice in the area of clinical trials. And suddenly we had a very tragic and catastrophic event in our family that was a medical event. And it was very, very tragic. I won't go into the details, but being who I am, I was devastated given the fact that I was in this industry, medical, healthcare, pharmaceutical, and I could not help fix the problem, which unfortunately came out to be a tragic end. And what happened is that, and I'll be the first one to admit this, I kind of meandered and wallowed and really couldn't find my bearings for at least a year and a half, 2 years. Emotionally, I was very, very, confused. I don't want to give the impression here that I was, off the grid or whatever. I just had a lot of baggage going on with me at that point in time, looking for a new way, whatever. Through a sequence of events, and life is wonderful, and the universe knows how to do things, I was at lunch, and my seatmate next to me at a presentation was a front office executive of the Philadelphia Phillies. And we got to talking, amazing individual, close friend to this day. And he said, you know something, what we'd like to do, Michael, you have a technology background. And Michael, what we would like to do is we would like to bring the social media platforms of Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter all together. And when people come to Citizens Bank Park for a game, we would like that to be displayed on the Jumbotron or on an image or a platform. So I worked with the Phillies on that, and it was very enjoyable. Being a hometown boy, love the Phillies. They're my team, okay? Right. But what happened?
Go Phillies.
Go Phillies.
But this was about social media posting, nothing to do with statistics.
Absolutely nothing.
Right.
Absolutely nothing.
Got it. Okay.
What happened, if you look at 2012, we have a two-time All-Star pitcher, Roy Halladay, who went on to become a Hall of Fame inductee. Yep. Doc Holliday. And he was basically having a terrible launch of the season. And if you were a Phillies fan, you were saying in 2012, how did Roy Halladay start the season with a 4-6 or a 4-8 record with an ERA over 8?
I remember that well.
Okay. The vibe was he was having lights-out bullpen sessions, but when he got on the mound, something happened. And we don't know what it was. The manager at the time was Ruben Amaro. The pitching coach was Rick Doobie. Excellent baseball executives. But what really was needed at that point in time was a way to see when he was pitching in-game, how do you look at what's called the kinetic chain, his arm slot, his hip rotation, his knee lift, his stride length, his trunk tilt. Took me about a year to devise the Kinetrack system and to create a technology platform that in a baseball stadium, you now have 6 or 8 different cameras around the stadium that are all focused on the pitcher's mound. Why do you need 6 or 8 cameras? Because you have something called occlusion. If you don't have a camera on the first base side, you're not going to see what's happening with a left-hander.
You're trying to see the whole body in action.
Exactly correct. Exactly correct. So I went to spring training, and I saw a number of different teams, and I needed one team to, in fact, say, come into our stadium. We'll be the individuals to help you do a proof of concept. And that team was the New York Mets. And great individual there that helped us from baseball operations, Adam Fisher. And we went into the New York Mets Stadium on June the 12th, 2015.
And that's when it began.
That's when it began.
Excellent. Excellent time to take a quick commercial break. And we'll be back in 1 minute with Founders Forum.
Curious about Bitcoin but overwhelmed by its complexity? Our team of financial experts is here to guide you through the blockchain revolution. Whether you're seeking professionally managed investment strategies or want to learn the fundamentals, we provide comprehensive education on everything from secure storage to tax implications. Don't let uncertainty hold you back from opportunities in the Bitcoin space. Our experienced advisors will help you navigate common pitfalls and make informed decisions aligned with your investment goals. Visit crosscapadvisors.com today to schedule a free consultation. Your journey into Bitcoin starts with education. Let us be your guide.
We're back on Founders Forum, and we're with our guest, Michael Eckstein. And Michael just talked about kind of an amazing story as to how he got involved on a consulting level, kind of looking at the dynamics of pitchers in Major League Baseball. So you started your job with the New York Mets.
Yep. So here we are in Citi Field. And over the past year, I connected with this individual who was helping write the code. And we had a proof of concept. Get there 8 o'clock in the morning, and we start putting cameras and tripods and cabling and servers all over Citi Field. Baseball stadiums are a huge, huge structures.
I should have had you set up our video this morning because you're much better at that than I am.
We are running all over, okay, and got there at 8 o'clock in the morning. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we are finally ready to look at the synchronized videos of the pitcher, see what happens. The pitching coach said, this is what I want to do. And at the end of the day, we were successful. So being very, very ecstatic, okay, going to the different teams, I said I need the first team, number one team, to in fact be my first adopter. And I said to them, we'll write in the contract that A, I will sell this technology to no other team in your division for 3 years. Number 2, I will give you some incredible first adopter pricing. 3, I will actually ask you to allow different teams to take a tour of your stadium, and if I make a sale, I'll give you a percentage of that sale. So
pretty good deal.
Yeah, so I'm talking to the teams, and the teams that raised their hand, the first team was the Tampa Bay Rays. At that point in time, Joe Madden was the coach, and Andrew Friedman was from the Rays, who is now, running the brain trust for the Dodgers. And he said, yeah, we'll basically try it. So the Tampa Bay Rays was the first installation, followed quickly by the Dodgers.
Well, hang on a second.
Yes.
So Tampa Bay Rays, this was what year?
2015.
And when did Joe Madden win the World Series with them?
I'm getting to that, sir.
Okay, all right. Okay, good. All right, good.
So what happened was Tampa Bay Rays 2015, followed quickly by contracts with the LA Dodgers and the Chicago Cubs. And lightning struck In 2016, Joe Madden is now the manager and the coach of the Cubs, and the Cubs win the World Series. Okay. So clearly this is incredibly validated. Lots of good things happening, lots of energy, lots of vibes.
By the way, I imagine Joe Madden had something to do with bringing you onto the Cubs.
I would think, yes, absolutely.
Right.
And at that point in time, Theo Epstein, who came over from the Red Sox,
Right.
a very innovative owner of the Cubs. So again, it was the perfect confluence of a lot of very positive things happening.
Is he still in baseball?
Yeah, Theo still. Yeah, absolutely.
Not a president.
No, I don't know exactly what's going on. But
he had a remarkable, pretty quick career.
He had a remarkable career, Theo. Very innovative. You know, the Red Sox broke the curse. He came over to the Cubs. The Cubs broke the curse.
Right.
I mean, so.
You can't do much better than that in baseball.
Exactly.
Right. Pretty amazing.
So what happened was 2016, 2017, turned out there were a lot of things happening within technology. And it was a time at that point in time that started to look at other applications for the technology. Yes. I get a call from CBS Sports, and the next thing I knew, we are doing this for the Masters. I get a call from Microsoft because at this point in time, the cloud service we're using is AWS, Amazon. Microsoft said, bring the cameras, bring the analytics, come down to Indian Wells, and we're going to have a demo reel with Coco Gauff. So we have a demo reel with Coco Gauff. During this time, I am no longer part of Kinetrax. I am no longer doing these sorts of things.
Did you sell Kinetrax?
Yeah, for that company that I started, okay? But instead, there are an incredible amount of new companies that are coming onto the stage, great engineers, great software developers, and my primary skill there is the area of, again, business development, marketing, strategic planning. So a huge thing happened that we can talk about in 2022. What happened in 2022 is that there was a change in the technology. And the change in the technology, Mark, is that prior you had to spend $175,000, $180,000 for all of these cameras, for the servers, for the cabling, for the chipsets. In 2022, what happened was the AI algorithms that you do the calculations with started to get baked into the silicon chips. And what this means now is you don't need $175,000 to get into and understand sports performance. You can now do this with an iPad because you now have this technology that is called inverse kinetics, inverse kinematics, that you have the ability to take a 2D image and now convert it to 3D XYZ coordinates. I know that sounds heavy and techy, but what that means is with, in fact, an iPhone, with, in fact, an iPad, you now have the ability to do with a little league, a high school, a college, you have the ability to do this and have the same basic foundation of sports analytics and motion capture that you see in Major League Baseball stadiums.
By the way, you and I might find ourselves on the golf course soon. We met through a mutual golf friend, right? Maybe we can try this out.
Absolutely.
Ooh,
the answer is absolutely
pretty
yes.
Cool. Okay, cool. So keep going.
That is where the marketplace is today. You know, I look back and so many of the things.
So is that Topaz Group? Is that?
Yeah, and that actually does business under Vector Sports Science. Nobody could really relate to the Topaz Group being part of the sports industry. Right. So I have a DBA, which is called Vector Sports Science. And working with different leagues and different teams and different athletes and bringing the technology together, it's a very exciting time right now.
So we don't have a lot of time. We have about 3 minutes left, but we, and time goes fast on the show. It always does. So a question for you. I mean, you're not a young man, like I'm not a young man.
No.
Right? But you still have a lot in front of you, it seems to me. There's still a lot you want to do.
Well, I'll be realistic. I'm in the fourth quarter. Okay.
Well, that's fair.
Okay. And my challenge right now, and in addition to doing the work I do and working with these teams and technology companies, I have to start thinking about a succession plan. And what I am doing is I am starting to work with and interview and collaborate with different companies, different organizations where I can consult, teach, advise, and mentor. And over the next, year or 2 years, if you say to me, Michael, what does the future look like? That's an important part of what I'm doing, Mark, to in fact work with individuals, identify individuals that I can mentor and can continue the work that I am doing.
So really, that I was going to ask you about your future vision. It's really to figure out how to continue your work, but to get there, you're mentoring, advising, consulting.
That's exactly correct. Yeah. And I find that incredibly fulfilling. I mean, people say to me, Michael, you don't have to work. I mean, you've been blessed. You've been very, very, well compensated, to which I answer, there are only so many fish you can catch and only so many golf balls you can hit.
Right, exactly.
And
my sentiments exactly. I'm with you.
So nothing gives me more satisfaction than waking up in the morning and have Zoom calls, conversations here in the United States, overseas, with young, energetic, incredibly bright people that are able and willing and have the passion for sports analytics that I have.
So we do have less than a minute. I have one last question for you. What's the most important piece of advice you have for entrepreneurs that are launching new companies, of which we have many on the show?
Yep, very simple. Churchill said it. Don't quit, okay? There will be a number of people that are naysayers. You will have people yelling from the cheap seats. You will have individuals giving you their opinion. But get your facts right, put together an excellent plan, and put together a path forward that, in fact, can validate your vision and give you the satisfaction that you need.
Well said. Great story, Michael. Thank you all for listening today to Founders Forum, and we'll see you next week.
Enjoyed your time with Founders Forum and that you found value to take with you throughout your day. Join us again next week for another episode of Founders Forum.